Hogstye.
Hey everybody, it is Alex here with the Hogstye. I'm actually on the show, even though I told you all I wouldn't be. I had 2 flights cancel on me when I was trying to head down to Houston for my mother-in-law's birthday. So that was fun to be stuck at the airport for 4 hours with that. So Steve's here. We got Dave, who was gonna be my sub. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. About yourself?
I'm doing good now that I've left the BWI airport.
I have a whole rant on airlines if you want to hear it, but
No, we're not going to get into a political rant on airlines. We're going to skip
Come
that
on,
part.
man.
No. Also, there's
catch
nothing
that?
more boring than talking about airlines. Like every stand-up has done it for 100 years now. We're done with that. You know.
Well, we're not done with it. We never started it.
Well, I meant culturally. We're done with the jokes about airline food. So.
Fine. If you don't want to let me rant about whatever, fine. Get to football,
unless you're going to stand up in front of a brick wall with a mic and be like, "What's the deal with airline food?" Then no, we're not doing.
I don't have a brick wall. All I have is this.
Oh
red
yeah,
and
your house
gold
has
rim.
no brick in it, does it?
Not on the inside. It doesn't. Does your house have brick on the inside?
Technically, but it's all covered by plaster and drywall at this point because it's that kind of thing.
Well, I got plenty of exposed concrete right behind me.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Which, by the way, reminds me very much of the dorms I lived in at Temple. All the dorms were just exposed concrete all the time.
Yeah, it looks like Dave's living in a locker room or something.
The impressive thing is he's got all those pictures hung in there, so I know he's got a lot of concrete screws.
I know. That's what. Yeah, I mean, it literally looks like he's got a bunch of football pay. It looks like he's literally living in a locker room.
And I still got more to hang.
Yeah.
Got a whole bare wall right over there by my pool table yet.
Oh, okay. Nice. Dave's got to give us a tour at some point, it sounds like. He's got quite the man cave. Guys, we got to talk about this game first. It was let's rip the Band-Aid off, like I said before the show. Washington wins 7-10. Ron Rivera gets 7 wins back to back. So I don't know if that's something, but that's something. What were your first reactions to this game? Let's start there.
Well, no. You guys have to hear these stats because I had to look at them.
Steve, do your numbers.
No, I had to look at them, so you guys have to suffer through
this
too.
Go Rain Man.
It's not that. It's that I want to make the audience suffer. Okay. And yes, if we don't do this, my head will explode.
Well, but it's more you love numbers. You do.
I do love numbers, but in this case, I want to make the audience suffer.
Okay.
Taylor Heineke was 9 for 18 for 120 yards. That's 50% completion percentage for those of you who are math efficient. Quarterback rating of 71.5. Antonio Gibson, 21 for 146, 7 yards per carry at the long of 27. Jonathan Williams, 7 for 45. Jarrett Patterson, 6 for 21. Andre Carter, 1 for 11. Receiving wise, Terry McLaurin is 4 for 93 on 6 targets. Jarrett Patterson, 2 for 14. And then John Bates, Antonio Gibson, Adam Humphries all had 1 catch each. Cam Sims continues to be the forgotten man, had 1 target, no catches. On the Giants side, this is really just funny, frankly. Jake Fromm.
Not haha funny though.
No, it's like funny, kind of sad and pathetic funny.
Okay.
Jake Fromm was 15 for 31 for 103 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. 83 net yards passing. And so for those who are counting, that makes 73 yards net passing for the New York Giants in the last 2 games combined, mind you. And then rushing, Saquon Barkley was 11 for 30, 2.7 yards per attempt. As a team, they were 25 for 94. Fromm himself had 53 yards and 5 catches. And receiving, Darius Slayton, 2 for 29. Kenny Galladay, 3 for 22. And Barkley, 3 for 19. It goes down from there. Now, the question of the day, of course. We had a whole lot of punts in this game.
I
have 2 questions for you. One, the obvious, which is did Tressway out punt the Washington offense? That's number 1. And number 2, can you take a guess at the combined punting yardage between both teams?
Combined punting yardage. Ooh.
You got to make it interesting. So let's start with the first. Did Tressway out punt Washington? And to be fair, I did not give you the totals. So there were 99 net yards passing with all the sacks. And then rushing, they were 37 for 226 as a team.
They got 226 yards as a team. That's pretty good.
Yeah, they
actually.
did. Well, they had a bunch of running backs and Gibson, Williams, and
Yeah, yeah.
Patterson, and
So I'm gonna say no for the individual, but combined, I'll say yes, because I think that
No. The question was how many combined punting yards did both teams have?
Sorry. I'm gonna say 450 yards combined.
Okay, Dave, your thoughts?
I'll go 525.
Okay, and did Tressway out punt the Washington offense?
I think just barely no.
Dave is closer than Alex for both. And
Okay.
so Washington had 325 total yards of offense, and Tress did not have a great punting day today. 6 punts, but only 245 yards, 40.8 yards per attempt.
It would have been better if Troy Apke hadn't screwed up on that last punt.
Well, there was that one, and he had a couple that were short punts because of where they punted from. And then the total punting yards for both teams, 551 yards total punting. Yeah, so
Dang.
Dave was close. You said 520 something, so that's a lot of punting, man.
That's actually pretty impressive, Dave.
It's
Unless you
12
looked at
punts.
the stats and cheated.
No, I did not.
12 punts, people.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
crazy.
all right. So can
I'd
we
like
just
to point out that Antonio Gibson had his best game of his career today. He's averaged 7 yards per attempt, which is his best of his career, minus the one game he only had 2 carries in when he got hurt last year. And then 146 is his best by far for total yardage.
Yep, you have that. You had him and Terry McLaurin both breaking the 1,000-yard marker at their respective positions. With
an asterisk, but okay.
Yeah, I know. It's 18 games for 18 weeks for 17 weeks. Yeah. But I will say, I went back and checked. When's the last time we had a running back hit 1,000 and had a receiver hit 1,000?
Well, they said it in the broadcast. It was Adrian Peterson, 2018.
No. When's the last time we had both a receiver and a running back both break 1,000?
Wouldn't that going back with Morris's rookie year, Alfred Morris rookie year with because
you got one of the guys right. Yes.
Well, then it would have been Santana Moss if it was Alfred Morris.
No,
Alfred Morris was Pierre Garcon. Right?
Oh yeah.
I'll give you a hint. It wasn't his rookie year. It was the last time that it happened.
Okay.
It was 2014. Deshaun Jackson had 1,169 yards receiving. Morris had, let me double check here. 1,074.
Okay.
So that's a long time to go without, having those two numbers hit.
This just goes to show.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean a whole lot in terms of wins and losses.
No, that's true because we went 4-12 that season.
Right.
And of course, we need an extra game just to achieve that again.
Right. That's right. That's why I said all of that comes with an asterisk.
Right. I mean, look, all these numbers that people hit from here on out, they all come with that asterisk. Just like, honestly, you could say that about when we went from 14 games to 16 games, which was, I think, before most of our lifetimes. But
I said that when what's his name broke Babe Ruth's single season home run record.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
Yeah, because they played a different number of games.
Was it Hank Aaron, right?
Hank Aaron is the one who broke Ruth's record.
But it was with more games.
Yeah, more games and Barry Bonds with steroids. So
Barry Bonds with a fat head.
Yeah. Just ginormous head. Comically large.
Anyway.
Anyway.
This game.
Let's talk about this game, even though I think none of us really want to talk much about this game.
Not really.
It was a very boring first half. Let's just sum up with that. Joe Judge calling 2 QB sneaks back to back on 2nd and 3rd and long. That was comical. Why wouldn't you just even give up and punt? Just don't even bother.
Well, I counted at one point. This is how boring this game was if you didn't watch it.
Right.
And Mike, because I'm nerdy enough to keep notes on this stuff, and I've got 8 punts in a row.
Yeah.
In the first half. That's bad, people.
I saw some stat line that the Giants went 47 drives in a row between scoring touchdowns at one point. They were shooting for 50, and then Washington had to screw up and let the shutout go.
I don't understand. I mean, I think first of all, Dave Gettleman, like I said, is a horrible GM, and Joe Judge is a horrible coach.
Right.
But
I don't know
why
which is
are you
worse.
lining up in some sort of, triple option, kind of formation on your 4-yard line when it's like 3rd and 10?
It wasn't even true. It was a QB Neal situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I was looking. I mean, I meant sort of like the triangle, but
Yeah.
yes,
Yes, they're in a
you're not
diamond
even gonna,
formation.
you're not even going to attempt to go for.
Right.
Just sad. And yeah, granted, Jake Fromm sucks and all that. The one thing that really stuck out to me was Saquon Barkley is just a shell of himself.
He is, and if he played for another team, I'd say it's a shame, because he came out with a lot of promise.
Well,
like
let's
if he
give
was
him
an
another
AFC
year.
running back, I'd be wishing him all the luck in the world. But he plays in the NFC East, so
I mean,
I'm
you
kinda
got to
happy
give him
about it.
another year, though. I mean, it takes people
Sure.
2 years to come back from, ACL. So let's give him
Sure.
a year.
Well, he also had a bit of a setback. Man, I would say, week 3, didn't he
Right.
come over in his
Yes.
ankle pretty harsh right there too?
Yeah.
I thought for sure he would have been done for the year when I saw the injury. So I just don't think he's been running like himself at all this year, period, for
Yeah.
multiple reasons. So I think, you got to give him another year before you actually write him off.
Oh, I'm not writing him off. I'm just saying, I'd hope he'd do better if he didn't play for
Sure.
the Giants. I feel that way about a lot of guys.
Yeah.
All right, you play for a rival. I'm not going to root for your success. There's some people like Ezekiel Elliott. I hope he fails no matter where he goes eventually. He just annoys me because
Yeah, I
the
just don't
hair
like the guy. Yeah,
yeah.
I just think he's
Yeah.
dope.
Wearing a crop top with a beer gut, just not a good look, man. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm not going to root for that.
He's not exactly the best human being on the planet either at the same time.
No.
And for the record, I mean, Barkley wasn't exactly tearing things up.
No,
up to
he
that New
hasn't
Orleans
lived
team.
up to his hype,
No.
has he?
No.
Yeah.
And plus their offensive line has been in the shambles. They've
Mhm.
had 0 quarterback play. I mean, it was like shut down Barkley and shut down the offense. I mean, it's been a tough
Basically, yeah.
situation for him out there.
And they did a good job shutting him down. I don't know if Steve, do you have how many times they got Barkley in the backfield?
No, I didn't track that.
But it seems like at least half the runs they tackled him in the backfield.
Well, I can give you some insight into this. So at the end of the first quarter, it was two carries for 3 yards, which means that one of them was in the backfield at least there.
I remember at least one. I think the first one they got him for minus a yard.
And then at halftime he was 6 for 12.
Right.
So at least 1 or 2 more there. And then in the third quarter, 10 for 27. He finally gains a yard. So you got to figure 3 or 4 of those probably in the backfield.
Yeah, it felt like they were living the backfield there. Jamin Davis had that great tackle. What was that? A 4th down play on the tight end on that end around, or was it tight end or receiver?
It was less great play by Jamin Davis and more that they completely left him totally untouched.
That's true, but he blew him up. Like he didn't try to take him down safely. He just knocked him out.
Well, you got to give him some credit. At least he didn't bite to the inside and stay in his position and had a good read on it at least. Right. I mean, granted, he was untouched, unblocked, it was wide open. He should have made it, obviously.
It's kind of like leaving Kobe Bryant unblocked with a lane to the basket.
Sure.
He's probably going to make it.
Right.
But Jamin Davis isn't Kobe Bryant. It's kind of like leaving the 9th guy on a roster with a wide open lane.
All my point is, yeah, okay, it looked good, but let's be honest and admit that he was totally not even. It was like they didn't touch him or block him in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
He was completely alone, and so had he done anything but what he did, I would consider that a failure. And I'm sorry, so I can't consider that any kind of great Jamin Davis play.
I'm not saying he's great, but it was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch. I'll grant you that.
And he needs something for a stepping point of the offseason. Hopefully, get something going for himself too. I mean, whatever it takes.
Yeah, if you can point to that and say we're playing you on the outside from here on out because you can occasionally do something like this. Okay, that makes it.
Here's my question though: shouldn't they have already known this?
No.
Who thought he was a middle linebacker?
Shouldn't they have? Yes.
I'm trying to remember what Robert Henson said because we asked Robert about this last time he was on the show.
Right.
And I can't. Do you remember what he said, Alex? I really can't remember what he
said. Robert Henson said, "No, he's a weak side linebacker."
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right off the back. Robert basically has said every guy we have is a weak side linebacker at some
And
point.
he's not wrong.
Right. They are in love with these smaller, a little more athletic linebackers to play on the weak side.
I mean, I'm just like an idiot with a laptop and a dream. So but I've watched all these film. I did a film analysis of Jamin Davis.
Mm-hmm.
It was obvious immediately he's a weak side pursuit linebacker. I mean, that's what he is. It was obvious. And so I don't know why Ron Rivera, other than the fact that he spent a first round pick on a dude he shouldn't have spent a first round pick on, would even think that he's a middle linebacker. I just didn't get it.
Well, because they desperately need a middle linebacker. They haven't had a legit middle linebacker in a decade now. So, I think
I desperately need a supermodel, Alex.
Well, go spend
happen.
what is Jamin Davis getting as a salary right now? $4 million. Go spend $4 million on finding a supermodel.
Yeah, he had a cap hit of $2.5 million this year.
Okay, for $2.5 million, you can get a supermodel, Steve.
Perhaps, but my point I think is valid. Correct?
Yes, your point is valid. But I think it was a desperation play on their part to put him at linebacker.
Well, of course it is. I mean, obviously it was.
Yeah.
Considering they have literally nobody,
right.
At linebacker, and they still don't have anybody. And by the way, John Bostic, who at least was a league average middle linebacker and could play, is a free agent.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear, who wants to hear about this game anyway? If you want to hear about Washington's 2022 linebacker core, let's talk about that. Jamin Davis is one. Yeah. Cole Holcomb is signed through 2022.
Right. That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was a short list. That was a
pretty stout unit right there.
To be fair, let me cruise through the injured reserve here real fast, see if I haven't missed anybody.
Let's not forget that, that's basically what they've played
with. Hudson. I forgot about him. Add Khaleke Hudson to that list. So there's
who's not really a linebacker. He's kind of just a safety playing.
No, but they're calling him a linebacker. So I'm going to roll. Considering they only have two others, I'm going to go with that. So that's their linebacker.
Can we count Landon Collins? Because they call him a linebacker too sometimes.
I'm calling him a safety, but
okay.
And the frustrating part is that they passed on that kid out that the Browns drafted, JOK, twice.
Yeah.
Not once, but 2 times, and he's out there playing like almost rookie of the year if it wasn't for Parsons.
Well, and the thing about that is he was drafted the 3rd round?
2nd round.
He was 2nd round. Sorry.
Yeah, 2nd round. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where he should have gone. And that's where Davis would have probably been there too. I got news for you. They could have moved out of the 1st round and still gotten Davis. And would anyone be upset if Davis played like this as a 2nd rounder? No.
No.
He's but that's what he is. He's not. They overdrafted him. It's really just that simple.
But in terms of this game, what else? I mean, there wasn't a whole lot interesting. Really, because the Giants were just a pathetic team on offense. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen
their defense played okay.
Well, considering they were facing Washington's offense, they did.
Right, but I mean, look, that our offensive line gave up a lot in the passing game. Like you mentioned Taylor's numbers, but he was getting harassed quite a bit. Every time they were dropping back, it didn't look like he was ever in rhythm, or by the time he was on his 3rd read, they were coming in after him.
One thing that stuck out for me today about Heinicke, in comparison when he started, he still has not learned to get rid of the ball in time.
No,
he still holds the ball.
Away.
He reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson in that regard, because Wilson still to this day does this. Like there were multiple plays where Heinicke would roll out and has got a running back or somebody else in the flats, and he holds the ball just a beat too long. He does that a lot. The broadcast crew pointed out that deep ball where he held the ball too long on the sidelines. So I think that's one thing that Heinicke's going to have to get better at, or maybe he will never get better at, but that's one deficiency in his game, I think.
Well, I think we pretty much see what he's going to be. He's always got to try to make a big play on every play instead of just taking what the defense is giving him or not giving him and just throwing the ball away and just living for the next down. And he doesn't do enough of that.
Well, that's an interesting point. I wonder if that if that is who he is, I don't mind that as your backup guy, right? Like, because
No.
your backup guy is gonna have to. Anytime your backup's in, you need a miracle to win every game. So I don't mind a backup having that kind of mentality as much.
He
Well,
he reminds me a lot. He didn't really at the beginning of the year, but now having watched him for a whole year, he does remind me of Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson
Mhm.
he's not a free agent, I don't think, but he's been rumored to be
No.
wanting out of Seattle and all of that. I
Yeah.
mean, they'd have to trade for him, and certainly, why would Wilson want to come to Washington? Total train wreck of a franchise. But just conceptually, he kind of plays like Heineke, and so maybe that would be more of a fit here if Wilson like lost his mind and wanted to come here.
Well, it's like me constantly on a broken record with him. It's just if he could just fix his mechanics and he was able to have any semblance of arm strength. I mean, that whole comparison with Russell Wilson would be so much closer to what you're talking about because that's exactly what he does.
Yeah,
He's constantly trying to look for that big play, trying to keep the play alive, rolling out of the pocket, scramble, and so forth. But he just doesn't have the arm strength and his mechanics when he's under pressure. It
well, yeah. I
fails
mean,
him every
Wilson's
time.
a Pro Bowl level quarterback, and
Sure.
Tynan he just isn't. But they play the same, and so hypothetically, you could see like Wilson with Heineke as his backup. They would play the same sort of style of offense. It's a ridiculous conversation because there's no way Russell Wilson want to come here, and Washington have to trade away, all of trade everything away to get him. So it's pointless.
Right.
But I just mean it's just something that's cruised through my head.
And given that Wilson had kind of a rough year for the most part this season, I don't know if that's something you'd want to make, a move you'd want to make anyway. I mean, because he's, 32, 33 now?
He was drafted same year RG3, was he not?
Yeah,
Right.
but
Yeah.
draft and age don't always, match up, right?
Well, let's just find out, shall
Yeah.
we? Because why not? What else do we have to do today?
He was.
Okay,
I know he was a Richmond Spider. He's 33.
Yeah,
Yeah.
33 years old. So quarterbacks can play a lot longer, so.
Well, pocket quarterbacks can. Wilson is a runner, kind of. I mean, he's mobile. He's not, Deshaun or not. He's not Lamar Jackson.
No, but a hallmark of his game is what Taylor Heineke does, which is to run around in the backfield.
Right.
So he has
roll
ran a
out,
lot.
find
Yes.
somebody. Yeah, that's Russell Wilson. The only difference is I think Heineke, some reason, loves to roll out to his left, whereas Wilson always rolls out to his right, which is it's actually rather odd that Heineke always kind of rolls out backwards. I don't know if you guys have picked that up too, but he definitely prefers to go.
It goes a different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
you got to
noticed that.
reset and everything.
Yeah. Anyway, so but I didn't mean to start a Russell Wilson conversation.
No. Well, we'll be having that conversation this offseason, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing else really stuck out to me on defense. It's just the Giants are so pathetic in every way that I think, Dave, Alex, and me could have been out there and done fairly well, at least survived against this team. On offense, I mean, it was pretty pathetic by Washington on offense,
The run game
And I
went
still
for-
and I
Yeah,
still
go
don't
ahead,
understand how PFF has this offensive line graded out the way they do. I know you've talked about this before, Steve. It's just
they're total
just by the-
garbage, Dave.
yeah. I mean, just by the eye test alone, I mean, it's a disaster more times than not. Every time Heineke drops back.
I have no respect for PFF's, instant, grade in a box thing they do that, 3 seconds after the game, they have these grades up. And I just think it's ridiculous. I mean, I guess the one thing to talk about is Antonio Gibson. It's like, where did this come from? What I noticed is that there were massive gaping holes in the defensive line, which, the Giants stink, even on the defensive front. At least today they did. But that having been said, maybe this is a harbinger of things to come, and maybe my constant criticism of Gibson all year really was his poor performance really was because of his health, and maybe he's healthy, and this is a sign that maybe he can kind of get it together for next year.
I mean, I think he had 1 week off, so maybe that did help him, come into this with a little bit of a fresher leg than, a couple of these weeks where he just hasn't been productive. And look, I know football's a tough game, and some coaches are like, well, you got to play every week. To me, if a running back's got like a lingering issue in his legs, you're better off almost sitting him and letting him get healthy for a while. I'd rather get 2 good games out of you in 6 than 4 so-so games. You know what I mean?
Which is what they did with Gibson.
In the end, yeah. I'm wondering if they should have done it earlier, though, now, in hindsight.
Right. I think the big thing with Gibson coming into this year was mostly, understanding the holes, having patience, allowing his block to follow. I think most of this year, I think he was going to the extreme with that instead of when he sees the hole, just exploding through the hole, because he has the quickness, he has the burst to hit the holes and get through. I think sometimes he kind of overthinks it, because of him adjusting to that position as a running back. And you saw a little bit more of the explosiveness with him today and hitting the hole and getting right through and picking up positive yards. So
I think you're
maybe
exactly right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that is how he runs. He's gotten a lot better at it if you compare it to like early in last season. He looks a lot better at that because people who are like serious elite high quality running backs, there's no hesitation at all. They hit the hole immediately, particularly out of like an I or power I formation. And Gibson just, he was transitioning, and I think you're 100% right, Dave, about that. And he has gotten a lot better about it. I was just concerned that he hadn't performed well all year, and maybe it was a combination of Washington's, mediocre offensive line, and he just hadn't been healthy. He's been on injury report like all the weeks, basically.
He's had turf toe all season. He then had some other
shin injury.
Yeah, and a shin. Like, he's just not been healthy. The one Gibson play that still sticks in my craw a little bit, that first drive on 2nd down and goal. And this is more of a play calling question. Why are you calling the like pump action draw in goal line situations? You can't let a play set up like that in short yardage. It doesn't make any sense. They're like, well, they read that great. That's such an easy thing to read, in that kind of, it was so predictable.
But
especially especially when you're dealing with those kind of pump action fake draws like that, you're typically letting the play develop downfield to pull the safeties back and pull the linebackers out, and then now you have that little extra running room, and then you take it down to your running back, and then bam, it'll scamper off for about 8, 10, maybe 12 yards, not inside the 10-yard line.
Right.
So yeah, I agree.
The other thing that I had in my notes here was that Terry McLaurin had a ton of yak this week, which really says a lot about him, that he was able to gain a significant amount of that yardage. He had 93 yards. He hadn't had a good game in a while, folks. He's faced a bunch of quality corners and quality defenses, and he's been the only threat, on a sad offense and all of that. A lot of that yardage today was yards after catch. The man is out there still, going, even when it's meaningless. I hope they make him a contract offer ASAP. Like the
one defense I do want to give to Terry McLaurin and all this is, like, when you go back to last week, that very first play down the field that Diggs picked off, it was horrible ball placement. He had to come back with the ball. McLaurin had him beat by a yard, at least by a half a step. If he puts that on his outside shoulder and puts him down in stride, that's a big play. But instead, now you're turning around and you're underthrowing and keeping to his inside shoulder, and Diggs now becomes the receiver. And you see, I've seen far too much of that from Heinicke all year. I mean, I'm not going to say he hasn't been blanketed like you're saying, Steve, but I think there's kind of a middle line in there too at the same time. I think he's had the opportunities, he's been open, but the balls are just not getting there.
Yeah, but look, yes, that one play you're talking about, I agree. I think the ball placement, I think my initial reaction was it was on McLaurin, but after I went back and watched it again, I think you're right, Dave. I mean, the ball, if it had been deeper and farther, out on his outside shoulder, yeah, he would have been in a better position. But you can't put it all on Heinicke, though. Some of these guys have just had McLaurin's number,
No, you're right.
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we really need to cover in this game.
I wanted to point out that the Giants' one touchdown, which was Kenny Golladay, I believe.
Yeah.
No, it was Slayton in the end zone.
Slayton, yeah.
Jeremy Reeves totally blew it. I mean, if you're in a zone coverage as a safety,
Yeah,
you don't come up, if you're in a deep zone. And that's what happened. If you didn't notice that the Reeves came up, Slayton ran right past him wide open and it's a touchdown. So that's one of those things we saw a lot of early in the season when they just had completely blown assignments. That's what that was. That was more like what happened in the first 3 or 4 games.
That's been a consistent blown call this whole season.
But they hadn't had them in a while, though. We've gone a while without one of those.
True, but to me, the fact that now we've seen it with multiple guys playing that position, that means it's probably a coaching issue somewhere in the process.
Listen, I don't buy that because I was a mediocre to below average safety in high school, and I can tell you that every safety knows that. I just think he blew it. I don't think that's coaching. Any NFL safety knows what his assignment is. I just think he blew it. I don't think that's coaching. That's like if safety play 101.
Well, then how do none of our safeties apparently?
Because they blow it. Because perhaps they're too interested. Either they're fooled by the quarterback, because the quarterback, like Taylor Heineke threw some people open today with his eyes.
Sure.
Quarterbacks throw people open with their eyes a lot. And so we'd have to go back and watch all 22 if the NFL would ever give it back to us properly.
Right.
But it's possible that Fromm did something to trigger it, or again, maybe just blew it, but I don't think it's coaching when it's like the safety needs to stay in his zone. That's not exactly Einstein, we're talking about.
I don't think Fromm's throwing any receiver open anyway.
Maybe not. I mean, yeah, I hear you. But I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, other than that Reeves just blew it, is that maybe Fromm looked someone shallow first,
Well, both Reeves and the underneath linebacker seem to bite on the same guy. So, right. Something definitely made them do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I don't think there's anything really worth talking about with this game anymore, honestly. So let's talk about the other stuff we want to talk about in this show.
By the way, we can all agree real fast. Antonio Gibson gets the game ball on offense. He's the only one that deserves it, and nobody gets one on defense.
Yeah, all right, that's fine. I don't.
We'll go with that, right? I mean, me neither.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. No, sometimes I might argue with you, but I don't care. We don't have to argue.
Besides, you're gonna make me think way too hard on that one.
Right, exactly. All right, let's talk about Dave. You have been texting us nonstop, and I think I've gotten 5 different people saying I can lock this in. This is what the name's gonna be. People who have DM'd you every which way, and everyone's a different name, and they're all saying it's 100% guarantee.
I was looking for the mute Dave Earl button on my phone,
but every morning I wake up and I'm like, oh, there's like 15 texts here from Dave and Steve arguing about the name. So what let's go over this, because you're gonna write something about it. What's going on with the name stuff that you've been hearing?
Well, I think the one thing that kind of really spurred me into this direction was after hearing the Admirals gaining steam the way it was, and how frustrating that was to me to hear that. Even being a vet, Admirals is just not a good name in any stretch of the imagination to me. Of course, so I start looking more and more on the web. I look more and more on Twitter and all that good stuff, and I just try to find, what other people are saying, what people are claiming, and so forth. So I picked up a couple things along the way, and one of them, when the Chap Sports came up with the whole Commanders ordeal and everything, I mainly shared that in terms of with the patch, because I know what Alex, you had talked about the patch, how busy, looking the other one that we had saw.
Explain what you're talking about, though. Patch and all that. What Chop Sports said.
Well, in the patch itself, it showed off. I recall.
Yeah, but hold on, wait a minute. But tell the audience.
Where did they find the patch? Start there.
What are you talking about?
Oh,
Chop Sports. Let me just short circuit this. Chop Sports had a screenshot of the video that Washington put out versus apparently like a preview clip that NBC ran, because I guess Washington's agreed to have a big name reveal extravaganza on NBC on their morning news show.
It's on the Today Show.
Today Show, thank you.
Yes.
And so Chop Sports had a side-by-side of a blurred out piece of paper sitting on Jason Wright's knee and a hypothetically unblurred out piece of paper that was from the NBC clip. And so
Right.
what the NBC side showed was an elaborate Commanders logo on that piece of paper. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, and so the one that was on his lap, you saw, it had Alex, if you could help me with that one again, exactly what that patch looked like, because you were talking about how
Okay,
busy that
so
was looking like that one.
it was there's a lot on there.
Yeah.
It's a four square, what I would call a crest, kind of
Right.
like a family crest. It's got the Washington crest on it, which is actually George Washington's family crest, which is now the DC flag as well. So that's like weirdly, crest upon cresty. But so it's got that in one corner. It says 1932 in one corner. It says DCFC in it for DC Football Commanders, because that's the name they were going to go with this patch at one point. And it says Commanders in the middle. Then it says, oh, what's the last thing? I can't remember what the last little corner was now. But it's got something else in one corner. Oh, it's got the W. That's it.
Right.
The military print W that we kind of figured
Right.
out was going to be on the
Way
helmet.
too busy to me. It looked like,
Yeah.
the Lord Albert Winthrop of House,
Right.
Tunney in England or something. It looked way too busy.
As somebody who's, distantly a fallen aristocrat from England and has a family crest that I don't really, wear or anything because I'm not ridiculous.
Well, you're
yeah,
ridiculous, just not in that way.
not in that way. And actually, I can take that back. My father has a ring with our family crest somewhere that one of his ex-girlfriends might have. I don't know. It's a thing. I need to retrieve it from an ex of his. But yeah, family crests can be complicated. This is more complicated than most of those like old English family crests, because it says
way too much going on.
Yeah.
it says the team for the people on it, which I don't know.
Which makes no
what that-
sense to me why you even say that.
If that is the
Right.
real thing,
Right.
and that's not a fake, and that's not just a draft, it's
I
awful,
gotta
okay?
assume this is a draft, because you
Has to
threw
be.
everything into it, and a lot of times what you'll do as a graphic designer is you'll throw all your crazy ideas into one image,
Right.
and then you'll say, "All right, take out half of it,"
And also, it
and-
could be a big Photoshop too. I mean, the photo wasn't necessarily real.
That's true. It could have been Photoshop. But looking at that picture, I don't think it is. But it's so low resolution. One of the easiest tricks to doing a good photoshopping is you take something high resolution, Photoshop it, and then make it low resolution to fake people out. Because then it's much harder for someone like me to go in and say, "Oh, I can see where the blur lines are and all that stuff."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they could have done that in theory.
But even I thought that symbol on that Chop Sports photo was ridiculous. I
It's
hope
way
that's
too
not it.
complicated.
Yeah.
The only thing that
Well,
makes me
the only
think
thing though
there's-
with the with that photo you keep referring to with the Chop Sports, I didn't send you one with the version what was on his armchair, and because the one I sent you, just for clarity, was the one where I showed the crest. It was all in burgundy and gold, and it had the one corner established 19 and the opposite corner 32, and then it had the 3 stars for the DC flag, the W
Right.
in that font, and the Commanders Cross Mill was all in burgundy and gold.
right. There's a
And then
slightly
they showed
simplified
next
one,
to
too.
that, they actually showed the DC flag in the burgundy and gold. I know I
Right.
didn't show you one with the other side that you're talking about, Steve, unless you got that from somewhere else. But
No, I
that's
think I
pretty
got
much
it from Chop Sports website. And yeah, it looks
maybe.
like the one that was in the photo you sent that was sent out by Chop Sports, that was just the logo that they hand wrote Chop on the photo.
Right.
Is slightly different than the one that was sitting on Jason Wright's knee in the other photo.
Right. And so one thing we should also make clear is this is probably that secondary logo anyway that we're all seeing here. And I mentioned this in my write-up about the whole uniform stuff they release, and I think other people have mentioned this too. There's clearly in one of the pictures some kind of circular crest above the nameplate. And you can't really see it because they showed like the inside of the shirt, but you see like a circle stitch. So it's probably whatever that is.
Well, I also thought the other side of the helmet that wasn't in reflection had some sort of circular thing on
yeah,
it
it
too.
could have been that too, because they seem to have that as well, possibly. So
Now,
I don't know.
now
We don't know if
now,
this is
now,
the final draft either.
now what's the possibility with that reflection in the window that Jason and them knew that people would zoom in on that, and they did whatever in terms of the video to make it look like one thing, but it's really something totally different.
Well,
Or
remember that.
maybe they showed one of the like an earlier mock-up helmet, and they
Mhm.
were using that as the possible image, but it really wasn't it.
Well, disclosing the W isn't exactly a huge disclosure anyway. The team disclosed that in that video where they had the W in black that kind of faded, and it
Yeah.
was that W. That's not exactly a big revelation, to have the W out. The crest would be a revelation because that would disclose
Sure.
the name.
Yeah.
But if you recall in that reflection, most people were saying, I think Alex was saying that too, is that you would think you saw a monument in there, which would
Yeah.
lead to possibly Washington monuments. So maybe
Right.
there
The
could
stupidest
be,
of all possible football names, Washington Monuments.
Yeah. Well,
that'd be
look,
1A anyway, next to Admirals.
yeah.
Admiral
Look,
Sun strikes me as like a dry cleaning, not really a football team. Admiral's dry cleaning,
okay, that's a weird. Well, hey, you know what? That would actually tie us back to George Preston Marshall, because where did he make all his money?
Dry cleaning.
Yeah.
People use names that start with A in small businesses to get them in front of at the top of the phone book, in the top of
Right.
search
Right.
results.
Taxi company. That's why you always
Yeah.
have ABC
Yes.
cab company or ABC plumbing.
All
Yeah.
my point is, I kind of Admiral strikes me as
A dry cleaner. Yeah.
that, but kind of a dumb name. I mean, it's not we're not a Navy town. It's a
No,
military town, but it's not a Navy town in
And you
particular.
can't
it's not even really a military town.
no.
Statistically, we're not a military town. Like, there's towns that exist just to support bases.
Well, it's
you
no
know?
major city is a military town, but I mean the
Right.
Pentagon is there, and in that respect, I sort of get it. But Admirals, like it's just
Right.
a uniquely Navy reference is just weird.
Right.
And you can't really play to the Buck side, the Pirate side either. I've seen images of with Admirals. I forget which. I think a hockey team or whatever displays it as a Buccaneer or something on it. You can't do that.
Yeah,
You already
it's
had that
an
down in
AHL
Tampa.
team, the Milwaukee Admirals, which again,
Yeah.
not a Navy area, Milwaukee,
No,
Wisconsin. I don't know, like it's a weird name. I guess they really want the military connection, so that's fine, whatever. But
I mean, I applaud that as a general construct, given the fact that Redskins is gone. But I just think that's a particularly strange military connected name.
right,
And
well, Generals is taken by the Washington Generals of the Harlem Globetrotters. You don't want to be associated with that.
A team that's
So-
lost 500 games in a row.
Yeah. They won one game, I think, in their history. There was some fluke game where they accidentally
Yeah, it was
won.
like decades and decades and decades ago.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And, and the one thing going back on the whole military theme though is just, thinking more on it. Even me as a veteran, I would rather just choose this team not really go down that road in that sense of like Admirals in that sense, because when I watch football on Sundays and I tune in on my team, it's to get myself away from reality, get myself away from everything. And this team is just something I come to just to relax and not be part of any kind of either a political statement or military tone or whatever. Because even with the military tone, it's still sensitive to certain people out there because you have anti-military people out there.
Well, and to those people, I say screw them.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you on that one, sure. But it's just, I don't mind the military theme, like Red Tails. I would love Red Tails. I got no problem with that. You and me both, or
Yeah.
Steve and me both on that. But it's just, I'd much rather, Commanders I can deal with. That's okay. You can make a reference to military theme, but you don't have to keep it focused on the military in that sense either. At the same time, you can do almost anything you want in terms of marketing and so forth going forward. Or
Well,
yeah.
one thing
So-
I wasn't in the military, but I would wonder about this aspect of the military theme. And you guys are ex-military. I saw one guy did some mock-ups of different uniforms, and he was putting different military rankings on guys, like as
That I
as
hate.
part of the logo. And I was
And
like,
no,
wouldn't that kind of
absolutely
piss
not.
off you as a
Yes.
military guy? Because you earn a
Yes.
rank,
Yes.
and even me as a non-military person, I understand that means something.
Whoever that person is designing whatever it is you saw, never
Big
served.
swing and a miss. Yeah.
Never served.
Yeah, no, absolutely no rank, and I definitely do not want to see military fatigue uniforms of camouflage or whatever. Absolutely, I agree with Steve on that one wholeheartedly. If they went through a full camouflage military theme uniform, I mean that might almost put me my ticket out.
Yeah,
I do not want to see that.
And I don't like that just because I think aesthetically it looks terrible, especially if you're going to try and keep it burgundy and gold. It doesn't work.
Well, I mean, people, from my perspective, football isn't life or death.
No.
Granted, it's a tough game, and certainly all of us would, be severely injured playing it at that level. I get it, but at the end of the day, it's not life and death, and people who serve in the military are literally risking their lives, in some case dying because of it. And the idea of saying this is war, let's put on uniforms and give them rank, and it's, I mean, nothing offends me necessarily, but I just think it's disrespectful is the way I would say it.
Yeah,
and see,
and that's not what Ron Rivera intends.
No, and that's why I think Red Tails differentiates itself from these other names, because now you're just paying homage to an elite unit that was in the military back in World War II. That's completely different, So it's like that's almost like with the Redskins, and most people looked at it as it's paying homage to the Native American community. It's keeping their names out there. It's keeping a focal point. They go down that road, talk about that, which I've always agreed with. That's one of the travesties, in my opinion, that we lose the name too, because the more and more times that we lose anything in terms of reference to Native Americans, it's just more and more of a separation we have to what their culture was and what they brought and their history and so forth. But that's a whole other
conversation. I understand that perspective.
I'm still going to be rooting for. On February 2nd, Dan Snyder comes on the Today Show and goes, surprise, we're going back to Redskins. That's what I'm rooting for.
It's funny you say that, because I was saying the same thing to my wife the other day, that they did a video and they were just showing the history of the team back in the 80s. And it pop up with an R and it pop up with an E and a D. And next thing you know, it tracks across Redskins. But on all that, you just see all these Native American tribal leaders from actual reservations standing as a group or giving images throughout the actual video and saying, we've done our homework. This is what we need to do. This is what we want to do. We're going back to Redskins, and we have full support, all that. But my wife said, wake up, stop it.
Yeah, I would respond to you guys, that ship sailed. So
obviously we don't think that would happen. That's what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for it, but obviously that's not going to happen.
You have a better chance at rooting for a Martian to land on the National Mall and say, you all need to stop having wars and,
Hey, listen, with some of the videos that have been released by the Department of Defense over the past 3 years.
Yes, it's more realistic.
Yeah, I don't think it's totally impossible. I don't think it's totally impossible that might happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Something I actually knew. And look, all right, I'm not going to go down that tangent. Never mind.
I'm not that the little green man, beamed you up to their ship, please, Alex.
No, of course not. I'm not that crazy.
Or who knows? Maybe our new team name is going to be related at those Martians, and that's when they land on February 2nd, saying we now own this team.
This is why we did the Today Show, because we felt like just doing this as a local webcast was not big enough. This is Gleeblop. He's going to run the team now.
He brought a huge check to Dan Snyder. Davis, what else do you want to say? Since you have a piece that will be out by the time people hear this,
right?
What else do you want to say?
I don't want to go too much on the piece and talk about everything that's in there, but I do know that I think I know we talked about this with the trademarking ordeal and so forth, that it's probably not as realistic to happen, which I agree. But there's a lot of things lining up in terms of, maybe we shouldn't discount the Red Wolves exactly just yet anyway.
So there are people who are holding out hope for Red Wolves still.
Right.
And
the team had their lawyers stand there and just say, it's not Red Wolves, get over yourselves.
Which could be part of a misdirect too. Right. And we don't really know that either.
There are people who've put stuff like really super tech nerd stuff out about how websites are designed and built that indicate that they believe Red Wolves is still a possibility and that it's all a big, misdirect by the team.
A ruse. Yeah.
I'll say this much. Trying to think of how much in detail I want to go here. There are legitimate, I'll just say it like this. I have looked today, Sunday, in the trademark records. I've dug around in some federal cases that are active lawsuits that are going on, inactive lawsuits. Now, it is accurate for the team to say there are serious trademark issues with the name Red Wolves, that right now today they could not just walk in and get it approved. That having been said, money talks, and if they really wanted to, almost anybody has a price, and so they could pay off whoever probably. But it is not wrong and not a lie for Jason Wright and that whatever that lawyer's name was to say that there are trademark issues, because there are serious trademark issues with that name in particular.
Random Washington lawyer.
No, it was the general counsel for the team. So I just can't remember his name. But so I mean, I don't know enough about the techie side of it to dispute or not the implication that maybe there's a Washington Red Wolves website. Maybe there is, but
I'm sure there is, because all these things have been patented and turned into websites.
Now, I will say too that now you can take with a grain of salt, of course, because nobody knows them except for me. Is that my own brother-in-law deals with a lot of this stuff with domain with domains and so forth, and the one thing that he had talked about when I showed him what I have in this article and things I talked about, and with that Red Wolf site that I showed you come up forbidden and so forth, is he has said that there is a possibility that everything that gentleman I was talking to before was making all these claims, that they could be in a process, and right now they could be migrating everything over to a specific site right now, and it's forbidden only for administrators to continue building. So when the February 2nd rolls out, they can migrate now or do a redirect of the actual current Washington site to go right to that new site in the Red Wolves right now. Yes, that is possible, but to the extent at which they're going with it, it's maybe not as likely, which is, with the trademark issues you talked about too as well, and how elaborate you really want to get into misdirecting everyone and so forth. I don't know how deep they really want to go with all that.
I don't know how smart the Redskins or the Washington front office staff really is in that regard also. But it just, if you're blowing off what the general counsel said and think, it's nonsense, it's not nonsense. I've looked into it. There are real trademark issues with the use of the name Red Wolves that are a problem. And again, I mean, the team could pay off if they wanted to write a big enough check. Everybody has a price. So I'm not saying it's totally impossible, and it's also not totally impossible that eventually they could get through all that and get a trademark. But it's a more complicated name than any of the others.
But
so
now the one thing, I'm sorry, Alex, go ahead.
I was going to say, just for fun, I have now looked at WashingtonAdmirals.com, WashingtonRedHogs.com, WashingtonHogs.com, WashingtonCommanders.com, which is not going anywhere. It's just hanging up, honestly. And Red Wolves. Red Wolves gives you this forbidden site that you're talking about. It's which means somebody owns it and they're blocking you. Admirals, Red Hogs, and Hogs are all owned by somebody, and they all have little things saying, if you would like to buy this page, contact the owner here. So, look, which all these sites are, they're all being, kind of done that way.
All this is covered in Dave's column, by the way, which is what Dave was saying there.
Yeah, and when you get to the Hogs or Red Hogs, I wouldn't be too surprised when the rollout comes out that behind all the chatter with Commanders and Commanders, Admirals, and with the exclusion supposedly of Red Wolves, whatever, that maybe all that's being directed away from what could actually be the name in terms of Hogs or Red Hogs. I wouldn't be too surprised by that, because some people go, well, it's being released on Groundhog Day. Okay. I mean, that's great. So, but now it has to be Hogs. Well, why not Groundhog Day?
Keep rooting for either Redskins or Washington football team. I'm going to keep rooting for both of those because like I said before, if you kept watching the football team, I could just ignore the fact that they've changed the name. But I don't know, man. I mean, look, I think all these names are dumb, if you ask me. I mean, I don't think there's a good one in the bunch between Armada and Commanders and Admirals, and it just strikes me as somebody or a group of people thinking way too hard over the course of the last 2 years and coming up with the most generic, silly names possible.
Yeah, I mean, yes, they overthought it.
Yeah, and they've used every animal name possible at this point, basically.
Everyone that's not already taken, yeah.
Yeah.
For most part. Yeah, sorry about that. I had to mute myself because my neighbor across the street was just sitting in his Charger revving his engine for a little bit there.
Doesn't he know you're on the air?
No, I don't have an on-air light. I've wanted one for a while to stick out front of my house. Like some people would put a flag out front or, a porch light. I want an on-air light just on my front porch. I think that would be good. But they would care.
You'd probably get the opposite reaction. Probably make as much noise as possible.
Yeah, right. There's always one person like that, isn't there?
I would be that.
Steve sees somebody else with an on-air. They're doing a podcast. He's just out there playing his guitar.
Yeah, I would go drag my amp out there to their front door and crank it up to 10.
Look, I'm so past all the name stuff. I find it very funny that there are people out there at this point being like, well, what if they use this name? And they're putting out suggestions like, hey, Washington football team, you should pick, Admirals as the name, or you should pick whatever. The team already has a name. Stop sending them suggestions. They've figured this out. They're not going to make a move at this point.
I'm over all of it at this point.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. This process has been way too long. It's time to end it.
Yeah. I heard somebody call into, it was Kevin Sheehan I was listening to on ESPN 980 one point this week. Somebody called into him and he's like, I got this great idea for a name and no one suggested it yet. It's Red Tails. And they're like, what? What do you mean that that's your, that's been suggested 100 times at this point. It's just gotten to the point of stupidity. This whole discussion.
All right, I'm done with this conversation.
Yeah. Also, equally dumb. Anyone who suggests that you shouldn't wear your Redskins gear and only wear wear whatever the frig you want. If you like the new name and you want the new gear, great. If you want to keep your old gear, great.
That would be me. Dave's got a Darryl Green jersey on as we speak, and I applaud that.
Dave's got 8 jerseys within this shot here.
I would like to reiterate, for those of you who know me who are listening to this, please do not buy me any of this new team gear because I do not want it and I'm not going to wear it, and it would be a giant waste of your money. So please do not. Because I'm still even talking about this under protest.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve, just buy generic shirts from our website. That's what you'll do.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. If we ever got on the ball and actually advertised the fact that we have
t-shirts. Yes.
Yeah, which we never do. But
yeah. Well, no one ever buys them when we did. So
we never advertised them ever, Alex. We talked about it once or twice. That was it.
The only thing you guys did earlier on was just do giveaways every now and then.
Yeah, that's true.
Won one of them.
Oh, that's right. But you did. I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
a while ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, we already did game balls. Anything else we want to talk about?
No, I'm just over the name thing. Read Dave's column.
Yeah. Dave's column will be up before the show or after the show. I don't even know. Same time?
It depends. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be up by the time you hear this.
Right. We're putting the column up Monday, right? And we're putting the show up Monday. They'll both be up Monday. So listen to one, read the other. It'll be cool. Yeah. There you go. All right, guys. That was the end of the season. Hey, we won. At least you know what? This is the end of those classic Joe Gibbs uniforms. So, at least they went out with a win. So,
I ended up being one game off of my season prediction. I said 8-9. They were 7-10.
Yeah, I was
pretty close.
I was way off. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, so we've decided what we're going to do from here on out. So until the Super Bowl, we will have a Thursday morning show.
Right.
And then after the Super Bowl, we will transition to and that'll be once a week, Thursday, that's it. And then after the Super Bowl, we will transition to our regular Monday morning off-season schedule.
Yeah. It thank goodness, because this gets exhausting doing so many shows.
Well, it does, because when the team is out of it and we have to
Yeah.
talk about it anyway, it becomes a grind.
It
Such as today, when we didn't want to talk about the game that we're here to recap.
Right.
But we had such a great conversation on the name, though. Elise, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do after February 2nd. Just talk quarterbacks, I guess.
Oh, and I have a whole schedule all laid out for that. Don't worry.
Good. Thank goodness. Yes. All right, guys. Thank you all for listening this year and this season. Stick with us. We don't take a break. We're not like some shows that, stop after the season. Some, lesser shows that I'm not going to mention.
Basically, we have no life, and so we're going to continue to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
All the time.
That's another way to put it. All right, everyone. Take care. Let's enjoy the off season, because this is where we shine. Bye.
And get McLaurin a quarterback.
Yes.